Hi there, this is a Polish Up Your Pedagogy video on formative assessment. This video is part 6 of 6 videos and it's about activating effective talk between learners. My name's Janie Henderson and I'm part of the pedagogy team. Here's how our session today links with the GTC standards for full registration. It addresses standard 3.14 and it also links to East Lothian's expectations of high quality teaching and learning as outlined on the learning scale. It states that learners have regular opportunities throughout the learning process to demonstrate their progress and achievement through well-planned formative and summative assessments appropriate to individual needs. Shirley Clark supports the understanding that formative assessment is a process. She describes formative assessment as a set of teaching and learning processes that empower children not only to progress, but also to become owners of their own learning. She states that there are 5 elements to formative assessment that overlap and depend on each other if they're going to be effective. The element that sits at the bottom of this diagram is the importance of effective talk between learners. This may be learners working together with one another in talking partners, or it may involve learners working together as part of a larger group. Further CLPL on cooperative learning can be found on East Lothian's YouTube channel in the Polish Up Your Pedagogy video playlist. So the aims of this video are to understand the importance of viewing learners as resources for one another and to outline some practical techniques to activate effective talk between learners. So why should learners engage in talk and discuss learning together? Well, Dylan Williams states that activating learners as learning resources for one another can increase learning, and in certain situations it can actually generate more effective learning than would be possible with one-to-one adult-learner dialogue because of the power of relationships that can sometimes exist between adult and learner. It can be said that you can never really understand something until you teach it to someone else. So activating students as learning resources for one another can actually be of benefit to both parties, the learner who offers the support, as well as the learner benefiting from the support. Both need to engage and internalise learning intentions and success criteria of the learning to be able to work together. So William argues that activating students as learning resources for one another can actually be a stepping stone for learners becoming owners of their own learning. John Hattie places classroom discussion high on his list of influences on learning. Shirley Clark suggests that setting up randomly chosen talking partners that are changed frequently can lead to significant gains both socially and cognitively. She suggests changing random talking partners weekly, with partners set up on a Monday. Co-constructed rules for how to be an effective talking partner or a talk charter that outlines ground rules for effective talk, a bit like the one on the screen, can be discussed and displayed in your classroom. Learners need to understand that their learning is not fixed, but it develops and extends. They need to value the importance of learning from each other. However, we also need to be clear that when inviting learners to work together, it is for the purpose of improvement. Learners are not coming together to evaluate the work of their peers. The purpose of peer assessment should be to help individuals improve and get better. So if improvement is to take place, then learners need to understand that when they offer feedback to a peer, it should be kind, it should be positive, and it should be encouraging. It might involve using a sentence stem like, "I really liked the way you," or "the most successful part was." It should also be specific. The feedback needs to be precise and it should link to the learning intention and success criteria. So the learning intention and success criteria need to be visible when learners are offering feedback. It might involve using a sentence stem like, "In the beginning you could," Or to develop this, you could. It should also be helpful. The feedback needs to be clear and it needs to be constructive. So, for example, you could try using to improve, add this or that. Or try changing something so that this happens. These sentence stems for peer-to-peer dialogue could be displayed on your classroom wall for learners to use. Further examples could be added. They're scaffolds that you as the teacher are offering to ensure the feedback given can bring about an improvement in learning. What formative assessment is all about. Voice bubbles can be used to record feedback. In this example on the left, learners buddied with a peer to share their writing, then completed a voice bubble about their partner's work. It needed to be modelled to show learners how they must give feedback linked to the success criteria. In this example on the right, learners used voice bubbles to critique a piece of learning in numeracy. Other techniques to give feedback include 2 stars and a wish. This is talked about in an earlier formative assessment video on teacher feedback. But 2 stars and a wish can also be used for peer assessment to scaffold learners' comments to each other. Again, learners can use sentence stems, like some of the ones on the screen, responding orally or in a voice bubble. Think, pair, share also works well. Pupils first need to be given time to think independently, and how long that think time lasts depends on the age and stage of the learner. But it is important that after a teacher poses a question, learners are given time to think and grow their ideas. Studies have shown that learners who are often invisible during talking times suddenly become visible if given time to process and think about their ideas before they have given time to share. So after thinking time, learners can then be invited to share their ideas with a talking partner or a neighbour, before being invited to share ideas verbally or in writing with the wider class audience. A pre-flight checklist is also another useful way for learners to check another learner's work to see if it has met the success criteria. In this example, there were 7 success criteria which had to be met if the learner was to draw a face successfully. The learner's partner has ticked the criteria that have been achieved and crossed those which haven't and still need to be improved. This technique works well when a task is specific and there are real clear requirements. Reporter at random is another technique. Here, one learner is assigned to be the group reporter. They have the job of reporting back their ideas to the rest of the group and the rest of the class. This learner should be chosen at the end of the task rather than the beginning by the teacher, so that learners don't ease off the task knowing they won't have to feed back. However, in advance, groups will need to be told that one member will be chosen at the end of the task. An end of topic question. Here, groups or pairs create a question on a topic of study. These questions can then be asked to the teacher or checked by the teacher and used to create a class quiz. Alternatively, groups could swap questions and discuss answers. And finally, an IUE checklist. This is a technique for using at the end of a group task. Each learner records or shares orally something about their own contributions, about another member of the group's contributions, and then a comment about the whole group's learning. So all of these practical ideas can be used to trigger talk between learners so that students can learn from each other. So you may now want to consider this challenge question. Thinking about the approaches in this video, how well do you make use of a range of valid, reliable and relevant assessment tools and approaches to support the improvement of children and young people's learning in your class? Thanks for listening.